Well, they're desperately untidy. They leave things all over. There are giants' chairs and giants' cradles and giants' beds and building materials lying around from things they were working on, and the stuff they've been playing games with where they're always chucking stones about, giants are. So the landscape is littered with their toys as well. And these are geological giants, and their stories are, in the most part, very dull. That is the best plot out of all of the geological giant stories. We shall ignore them from now on. Push them to one side. We come on to another kind of giant. For this story, for this kind of giant, I'm going to illustrate with a story that comes from Ireland. And it begins like this. Once upon a time, a long time ago, far away, in Ireland, there was a family. And the family were very poor. Oh. They're poorer than that. Oh. That's better. And so one day the father turns to mother and says, Mum, we haven't got enough to feed the kids. We can't feed them. What are we going to do? And Mum says, well, have we got enough to feed half of them? He says, just about. He says, all right, we'll take the youngest three and stick them in the forest and they can fend for themselves. So the three youngest daughters are taken out and they lead them away into the forest, and they eventually stop deep in the forest and say, girls, stay there. That's it, stay there. And off they go. So the girls are stood there in the forest, and after a while they get hungry, and the youngest of them, it was called Molly Whuppie. Molly Whuppie says to her sisters, come sisters, let us find somewhere where we can get food and maybe a bed for the night. So she leads her two elder sisters through the forest, and they travel for some time until they see a light. And then they head towards the light, and as they get closer they see that it's quite a large building. And eventually they get there and there's a very big door. They knock on the big door. And the door opens. And there's a woman standing there, quite significant stature. She says, what do you lot want? And Molly Whuppie says, well, we're lost, we're hungry, could we please have some food and maybe a bed for the night? She says, no, you can't come in here, my husband is a giant, and if he catches you here, he will eat you. Molly Whuppie says, we'll take a chance. We're going to starve anyway. If you just feed us, and if he's not here now, maybe we could get the food down us and be gone before he comes back. Now the giantess is a kindly soul, so she takes them in and gives them some bread and milk. And there they are, stuffing their faces with bread and milk. Oh, yeah. When suddenly, the door bursts open. And there, standing in the doorway, is an enormous giant. Ooh. And he says, fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of some earthly one. And his wife says, yeah, enough of your fee-fi nonsense. These girls have eaten of our food. They have partaken of our salt. You cannot eat them. So, oh, yeah, none of that. Well, I suppose they better stay the night then. And he storms off and gets some food for himself. Well, after they finish their bread and milk, they are shown to the bed that they're going to have to share with the giant's three daughters. And just before they go to bed, the giant takes 3 gold necklaces, and these he puts around the necks of his own 3 daughters. He then makes necklaces of straw, and these he puts around the necks of Molly Whuppie and her sisters. Well, Molly Whuppie thinks this is mighty strange. So, while everybody else is quietly dropping off to sleep, Molly Whuppie keeps herself awake. And then, once she's sure that she can hear heavy breathing or even snoring from all around, she sneaks out of the bed, creeps round, takes the 3 gold necklaces off the giant's 3 daughters, swaps them for the necklaces of straw around her own and her sister's necks. And then slides back into the bed and lies down. One eye half open. Sure enough, in the middle of the night, the giant creeps out of his bed, walks over to the bed where the 6 girls are laying and feels around the necks of each of them. He leaves alone those wearing the gold necklaces, but those who are wearing the necklaces of straw, he throttles and drags onto the floor and then beats to death with a club.
That's it.
Which way are you going to go? Is that an ooh or an ah? I don't think it's a way.
It's pretty horrific either way, really.
Yes. We'll go for an ah. Okay. Molly Whuppie and her sisters lie silent through all of this. Lucky escape. Once the giant has gone back to bed, quite satisfied with his night's work, Molly Whuppie nudges her sisters awake. Come on, let's leg it! And they scarp her out of the castle. And in the night they make their escape through the forest. On and on they travel until they come to a great rushing river. On the other side is a castle. But the drawbridge is up. And the only way across is by a bridge of 1 hair of rope. But Molly Whuppie makes her way across and knocks on the gates. And she says, don't do that, it could be another giant. He says, well, we escaped the last one. Let's take a chance. As it is, it's an ordinary king who lives in this castle and invites them in and gives them food and a place to sleep for the night. Here's their story. And he turns to Molly Whuppie and he says, Whuppie, you've done very well, but you could do better. That giant, he's got a magic sword that every night he hangs up above his bed. If you can bring me that sword, Molly Whuppie, I will marry your eldest sister to my eldest son. Which is a pretty good deal. Apparently.
In medieval times.
Yes. Better than nothing, yeah. So the next day, Molly Whuppie is out, makes her way through the forest, goes to the giant's castle, sneaks in and hides under the bed. At night, the giant comes in, lies down, hangs his sword up above the bed and goes to sleep. Molly Whuppie waits until he is snoring, creeps out, lifts the sword carefully off its hair.
She's strong.
And is just making her way out. Of course she's strong. She's a heroine. Starts creeping out, but just then the sword rattles in its scabbard. And the giant sits up. Oh no, not you again! Yep, me again! And off she goes, running away with the sword through the forest, and the giant comes blundering after her. Well, she can nip in between the trees. He's having to push the trees out of the way. But even so, he's still gaining on her with every step, getting closer and closer. Soon, she can feel his breath on the back of her neck. But just then, she comes out of the trees and across the bridge of 1 hair and safely onto the other side. And the giant is left back at the side of the forest, calling out, "Woe to you, Molly Whuppie! Never you come again!" She says, "Twice yet more I'll come to Spain, big nose." And into the castle. Yeah, I know the twice more I'll come to Spain thing's a bit weird, but it's a story. Just go with it, okay? In she goes up to the king, hands him the sword. He's very pleased. There's a big wedding ceremony, and her elder sister is married to the eldest prince.
Hooray!
At the ceremony, at the feast after the ceremony, the king turns to Molly Whuppie and he says, "Molly Whuppie, you've done very well, but you could do better." The giant has a magic purse of gold, which he puts under his pillow every night. bring me that purse and I will marry your second sister to my second son. She goes, it's a deal. They shake hands. Next morning she's up, across the bridge, through the forest, into the giant's house, sneaks in, hides under the bed. At night the giant comes back, tucks his purse under his pillow and lies down to sleep. In the middle of the night, Molly Whuppie creeps out from under the bed, pulls the purse and just gets it out. Is just creeping away when a coin drops out of it and boink on the floorboards. Up sits the giant. Oh, not you again! Yeah, it's me again, Baldy. Catch me if you can. Grabs the gold coin on the bounce, into the purse and out through the door. She's off through the forest, running, dodging this way and that. Of course, the giant's already knocked half of the trees down in the last chase, so this time there's less to get in his way. He's catching up with her even sooner. Oh, with every step he's getting closer and closer. She can feel his breath on the back of his neck, her neck, and then suddenly she bursts out of the forest, and it's straight across the bridge of one hair, and the giant's left on the other side. Woe to you, Molly Whuppie! Never you come again! Once more yet I will come to Spain. Fat belly, and in she runs. Well, the king is delighted when he's handed a purse of gold. And there's another wedding!
Hey!
At the wedding, the king turns to Molly Whuppie and he says, Molly Whuppie, you've done very well, but you could do better. The giant's got a ring, and if you can bring me that ring, then I will marry you to my youngest son. Youngest son sat at the table going. So Molly Whuppie thinks, oh, in for a penny, in for a pound. Next day she's over the bridge of one hair, through the forest, hides in the giant's castle, under his bed. He comes home, he's sleeping that night, and she creeps out from under the bed and starts trying to take the ring off his finger. Suddenly he sits up, grabs her by the wrist. I've got you now, Molly Whuppie. You won't get away from me again. Now, you've caused the death of my 3 daughters. You've stolen my sword and my purse. What would you do to me if I had done that to you? She says, oh, I'd be so angry. I'd be so upset with you. I'd stuff you in a sack and I'd throw in the cat and the dog and a pair of shears and a needle and thread and I'd hang you up on a hook in the kitchen. And then I'd go into the forest and cut myself a good big stick and thrash you to death with it. Giant says, right. Well, you have spoken the punishment. That is what will happen to you. And he drags her down, throws her in the sack, throws in the dog and the cat and a pair of shears and a needle and thread and hangs her up on the hook. And then he storms off to the forest to get a girt big stick. Molly Whuppie, inside the sack, starts calling out, oh, if you could see what I can see. There was nobody there to hear. She tried it again. Oh, if you could see what I can see. And just at this point, having heard noises in the kitchen, Giant's wife walks in. She says, what do you mean, see what you can see? I said, oh no, if you could see it. Giant's wife says, see what? I couldn't explain it, you have to see it yourself. If you could see it. Eventually the giantess goes, all right, I tell you what, let me up in a sack and then I'll be able to see it. Molly Whuppie says, okay, grabs the shears, cuts the sack open, takes the needle and thread, climbs out, gives the giantess a leg up into the sack, sews it up. Goes and hides behind the door. Momentarily afterwards, just as the giantess is saying, well, I can see a bit of Hessian and a cat, and in comes the giant with the girtest big stick you ever did see. And he grabs the sack and throws it on the floor. And his wife's in there calling out, Hey, hubby, it's me! But the dog started barking, the cat started yowling, and the stick comes hammering down once, twice. And there's such a noise going, he can't hear his own wife calling out to save her life. But he pauses momentarily, because he doesn't want to damage his ring by beating it with the stick, so he takes it up. Because if you've ever tried doing something like that, it really does mess up your rings. So he took his ring off and he put it on the table. And then he went back to the beating. But Molly Whuppie was out from behind the door, grabbed the ring and off. And the giant saw her. How'd you get there? Threw the stick down, chased off after her. And there they are, chasing through the forest. Well, he's beaten the path flat in the last two chases. He can really get some speed going now. She's having to run as fast as she can. It's a good thing she's had some practice. And off she goes, but he's gaining on her with every step. And he's getting closer and closer, the ground shaking beneath her. She can feel his breath on the back of her neck when suddenly she comes out of the forest and across the bridge of one hair, safely to the other side. Woe to you, Molly Whuppie! Never you come again! I never will come again to Spain. Fat ankles. Off she goes into the castle. There she hands the ring to the king, and the king hands her his youngest son, and they have a great big wedding, and everybody lives happily ever after!
Giants aren't too smart, are they?
Neither are their wives.
So, I like to try and keep my sets relatively short. I've discovered over the years that half an hour is the approximate amount of time it takes the average person to empty their glass and fill their bladder. So the plan is to do 3 half-hour sets. Unfortunately, giants being very big don't fit into half-hour sets particularly well. We're going to overrun, basically, is what I'm telling you. This is going to be a slightly longer than half an hour set. How much so depends entirely on the choice you make now with no real information between a story featuring, I'll make it easy, a Scandinavian giant or an Irish giant. Which do you want? Scandinavian, Irish. Irish. The only word I've heard is Irish. You're getting the Irish one there. Right. That was a big surprise, actually, for here. I really wasn't expecting that. Well done. Good. So, I'm gonna cut it down and see if we can fit it in. So, what happens is this: in Ireland, suddenly, all across the land, there was beautiful music. Beautiful music, wonderful singing, and the most delightful harp playing, a tinkling, sweet sound across all the land, but nobody could tell where it was coming from. And the king was delighted by it, and he said, "Where is this music from? Sons, my sons," and he had 3 sons, of course. "My 3 sons, if you can go and find where this music is coming from, whoever brings it to me, you will inherit the kingdom after my death." Great, so the 3 sons set off and they go looking. And they hunt around, and after a while they find a big hole in the ground, and the sound is coming out of the big hole in the ground. So they get a rope, and the 2 eldest ones go, "Youngster, you're going down." They tie the rope on, they lower him down, right down until they're nearly out of rope, and he eventually hits the bottom. Goes out, "I'm down the bottom." They say, "Good." Untie the rope. He unties the rope. They pull the rope up and wander off and leave him there. Yeah, that's older brothers for you. So the youngest son, he's down the hole. He doesn't know his brothers have buggered off and left him to die. He starts wandering along this tunnel that he's found. Here I will cut this down a little bit for you, because it goes on quite a long time, this story, if you're not careful. Actually, it goes on quite a long time if you are careful, but I'm going to save you a bit of time, because I do a lot of research for these sets. For every story I actually tell you, I've read at least another 10 of a similar type. And there are a lot of this type, and in this type, it's very common for the protagonist, be they male or female, on their journey, they will stop, and it happens with this one. He stops with 3 old men, one after another. Each one is the father of the other, and the last one's 200 years old. But at each one he gets fed, and there is a list of food that takes up half a page. Specifies not only the sausages but where they come from in Ireland, ditto the bacon, etc, etc, etc. Massive list of food. And that's basically, they stop for the night when he gets fed. And you've got to remember this massive load, and I thought, what is this all about? And I worked it out. Because there are references to food later on in the story, and what it's all about, actually, is about priming the audience with thoughts of food, so that at the end of the storyteller gets fed. Very clever.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah. I've already been fed. So. He stops. Anyway, the upshot of this is he stops 3 old men and they give him beer. And the last one says, well, if you keep going along the tunnel, the music's coming from along there. There's not much along there, but at the end there is a giant's house. Big giant, big house. It's a good long way down, but not far along you'll find a stallion, and the stallion will give you a lift. So the King Son trots along, finds the stallion. Stallion says, going anywhere? Well, along the tunnel? He says, yeah, there's not much choice, is there? Hop on. So he hops onto the stallion, and they ride along, chatting as they go, and eventually they come to the giant's house. And there, the stallion stops by the gardens, and he says, this is as far as I can go. Go up and knock on the door. And, if you need anything, come back to me, and I'll help you out as best I can. So off he goes, knocks on the door opens, there is an enormous giant, and behind him, his beautiful daughter, playing the harp and singing. And it is from her that the delightful music emanates. This is also a common theme in the stories. Despite the ugliness of giants in general, male, all giants' daughters are supermodels with degrees in advanced magic. In he goes, and the giant says, what do you want? He says, well, I came to find the beautiful music, and ideally take the singer to sing for my father, the King of Ireland. And the giant says, you can't have her, not going to happen. And he says, well, isn't there some deal we can come to? And he says, all right, I'll tell you what. We will play hide and seek. I will hide for 3 days, and if you find me, we move on to the next day. If you can't find me, I have you for breakfast. Then, if you've survived those 3 days, you hide for 3 days. If you get away with it, well, we'll see about you taking my daughter. If not, if I find you, I have you for breakfast. It's no halfway houses. Right, fair enough, says the lad. Start tomorrow? Yeah, start tomorrow. Door shut. Chap wanders back down to the stand and says, I don't know what, I've just agreed to play hide and seek with you. What am I going to do? I'm going to be eaten. And the horse says, don't worry about it too much. You're already committed, so we might as well have something to eat. Really? Yeah. Just fish in my ears and see what you can find there. So he fishes in the ear and he pulls out a bottle of beer and some bacon, frying pan, little gas stove. And
More food.
yeah, more food. And the horse says, yeah, I'm a bit peckish, can you have a look in the other ear? So he looks in the other ear and there's a bale of hay and a bucket of water. So he gets his, they have a good feed, he goes to sleep underneath the horse. In the morning he wakes up and off he goes to the castle, knocks on the door, door opens, there's the giant, and he says, right, go back to your horse, I'm going to hide, you come and find me. Okay. So he goes back to the horse and he waits. Counts to 100, sets off. Coming, ready or not? And the horse says, hold on a minute. I know where he is. He's at the top of that tree. So the lad goes and climbs up the tree, and sure enough, there's the giant at the top. Bugger! Down they go their separate ways. Goes back to his horse, putting all sorts of marvellous goodies out of the ears. Ooh, cheesecake. And flavour. Lemon.
Earwax.
Horses' earwax. Anyway, the next day he gets up, he says to the horse, well, here we go for another day. And the horse says, yeah, don't worry about it. You just go straight through the house, through the front door, keep going in a straight line, go out the back door, out on the lawn, you will find a football, give it a big kick, the giant's in there. So off he goes through the house, there's the girl playing away on her harp, he gives her a wink as he goes past, through the house, into the garden, there's the football, poof, and the giant spins out of it. Ugh. Oh, you found me again! Booger! Right. Next day, I get up in the morning and just having a cup of tea and some porridge from out the horse's ears. And the horse says, right, this morning I can't tell you where he is. You have to go in, and when you get in, you've got to ask the princess, ask the giant's daughter, without using words, just kind of make signs and stuff, and she'll tell you where he is. Right, so in he goes, opens the door, goes in, there's the princess playing away on a harp, and he kind of goes, so he goes and he takes the ring off her finger. Though he's thinking it can't possibly be true. How would the giant fit in there? And he looks at her and she goes, so he throws it in the fire. Did you get that? Excellent. And throws it in the fire, and fairly shortly there's, oh, ow, ow, ow! And the giant pops out of the ring. Bugger! Right, tomorrow I'll come looking for you, but I'm good at this, and I will find you wherever you are. Fair enough, says the lad, and off he goes. Taking a little thank you to the princess. Off he goes back to his horse. Another good drink to celebrate having got through the first 3 days. And then the next morning they get up, after he's breakfasted, he says to the horse, what am I going to do? I don't know this place at all. I don't know the land. I don't know anywhere around here. Anything could happen. And he's got the advantage on me. I'm going to get eaten for sure. And the horse says, look, I tell you what, pull out one of the hairs of my tail, climb into the hole that it leaves, and pull the hair in behind you. So he pulls out one of the horse's hairs from his tail, climbs into the hole, and pulls the tail hair in behind him, and hears the giant stomping around outside, hunting for him all over his estate. Eventually, at the end of the day, he just hears this loud booger, and pops out. Great, another feast. Sleeps under the horse. Next morning, he's up. Where am I going to hide today? And the horse says, right, tell you what, pull a nail out of my hoof and climb up in the hole, pull the nail in after you. So he does that. The giant hunts around all over the place. He's rummaging through his shrubberies and everything. He cannot find him for the life of him. Where is he? I can't find him. Eventually, oh, bugger. And it's another night, another feast, another beer, and see what I did there. And then he's out in the morning, and he says, well, where shall I hide this time? And the horse says, put out one of my teeth, climb up in the hole, pull the tooth in after you. So he climbs up into the hole in the horse's mouth, and here's the giant, and the giant's going totally spare. This time he's not just hunting in the shrubberies, he's pulling up the shrubs, he's ripping up his garden, he's tearing stones off his house, hunting for this chap, the King of Iron's son, and he cannot find him anywhere. At the end, he just, oh, Bogger, you've won! Well, King of Ireland's son comes out, goes up to the castle, and there he gets his reward. And the beautiful princess is allowed to go with him. And she leaps up on the back of his stallion with her harp, and away they ride down the tunnel, waving at the old men as they go past. And when they reach the end of the tunnel where the well is that he was dropped down in the first place, there's no rope. His brothers have gone away there, living it up in a pub somewhere. And he said, how are we going to get out? But the stallion is a magic stallion, and it leaps up the side of the hole until they get out, rides back to the king's palace, and there the beautiful giant's daughter sings her wonderful music for the King of Ireland. And the two of them are married, and he inherits the kingdom on his father's death, and they all live happily ever after!
Hooray! Sounds like it should really have been the horse inheriting the kingdom.
Yeah, the horse inherits a really nice stables full of mares. So, only 5 minutes over. That's pretty good going. So we'll take a break, and so that we can get all of this wrapped up in time for last orders, let's call it a 15-minute break. Is that long enough to recharge your glasses, empty your bladders? Yeah. 2 separate operations, I suggest. And be back ready for more stories at 10 to? 10 to? Yes?
The hour.
Yeah, cool.